Hello and welcome to the Critically Clueless. I'm a monk, and today we are in Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlords, and in this video we are talking about one-handed versus two-handed weapons and the advantages of both, and trying to answer the question of which one should you choose in your playthrough. And if that's the kind of video that you want to see, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget we do have that active and growing Discord. The link for that will be down in the description. Now, let's jump into this video. Fair warning, this video is rather long. We're going to go over the perks, which ones I would choose on each side, and stuff like that. So if that's the kind of video you want to see, this is for you, but fair warning, it is a long one because there are a lot of perks to go through in each tree, and there's a lot of things to talk about when it comes to one-handed and two-handed weapons. One thing I would add is that there is no right answer. I'm not going to tell you that you should use this or you should use that. This is a role-playing game, and it's meant to be made for you to enjoy this game however you want to see fit. So if you think one is better than the other, then that's absolutely fine, guys, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what I'm hoping to do is help you understand each one and what their advantages and disadvantages are. So perk 1 in the one-handed sword is Basher. Shields bash now 50% more damage and stun your opponent for longer. Infantry troops take 4% less melee damage while in a shield wall foundation. The perk underneath that is Deflect. One-handed weapons you wield have their handling increased by 20%, which is actually quite a lot. Troops in a formation you are leading have their one-handed combat effectiveness as if they were one tier higher. Again, that is pretty awesome. Personally, when it comes to these two options, I'm going to choose Basher just because I feel the shield bash when you're using a one-handed weapon is so bloody overpowered, and anything that helps just make that a little bit stronger, especially that stun aspect. Choice number 2 is Swift Strike, 2% swing speed with one-handed weapons. That's a plus. And then Governed Settlements have increased militia recruitment by 0.5 per day. Now that bottom one is for any troop that is at, or any hero that is governed to that city, so it's not actually going to be your main character. Underneath that, we have To Be Blunt. Increased your damage with axes and maces by 5%. Again, if you have this hero or a hero governed, settlements receive 0.5 security per day, which are pretty good. Pretty much is, do you want to go swords or do you want to go axes and maces? Finding your preference early on in this skill perk tree is advisable. Remember, you can actually change it all up though. Pick number 3, Cavalry. Your one-handed weapon damage is increased by 5% while mounted. Cavalry troops in a formation you are leading have their melee damage increased by 5%. Underneath that, we have Shield Bearer. Reduces the effect of wielding a shield on your combat movement speed, because when you do have a shield, that does mean that you're moving around the battlefield a little bit slower. Infantry troops in a formation you are leading have their movement speed increased by 3%. Out of these two options, I tend to go for Cavalry because there's a lot of outfield battles. Choice number 4 is Duelist. 20% more damage while wielding a one-handed weapon without a shield. You get double renown from tournaments as well. Now, if you're going to do a lot of tournaments, double renown from tournaments, especially early game, can really be useful. Underneath that, you have Trainer. Increase your hit points by 2. Melee troops gain 5% more experience for every battle. Now, it's a little bit controversial, but I always go for Trainer. I think the 2 extra hit points is only 2 extra hit points, don't get me wrong, but anything and everything adds up to this, and if you want to build an absolute tank, you're going to need to take every hit point you can, plus melee troops gaining that extra experience is very helpful. Choice number 5 is Arrow Catcher. Larger shield protection area against projectiles, including arrows, axes, javelins, anything like that. Lead formation has a small bonus to their shield protection against projectiles. Again, it's going to be good for if you run in a lot of infantry troops. Underneath that, we have shield wall. Your shield takes 20% less damage while blocking the wrong direction. Troops in the formation you are leading have a medium bonus to their shield size against projectiles when they are in shield wall formation. That was a long one. This one is one or the other. I actually think that shield wall is better than arrow catcher. Choice number 6, we have infantry in your party gain an additional 10% of their total XP earned after battles. Increases garrison limit in the governed settlements by 30. Again, that isn't for your main person, that would be more for your companions. Underneath that, we have military traditions. Infantry gain 2% or plus 2 XP, not 2%, plus 2 XP daily. Garrison wages in the governed settlements are reduced by 5%. Military traditions can be very useful because anything that reduces those wages are going to help. But being able to garrison 30 more troops is going to help even more. Choice number 7 now, lead by example. Troops in your party gain 5% more experience after each battle. Troops in your party start battles with 5 extra morale. United stand, troops in your party start with 8 battle morale if they are outnumbered. Garrison troops in governed settlements are 30% more effective in restoring town security. Personally, I think United Stand is the far better option here. Troops in your party start with 8 extra battle morale if you are outnumbered. Now, I don't know about you, but in every single playthrough I play, I tend to be the outnumbered party. Therefore, my troops not fleeing from the battlefield is so important. Also, if you're using this as a governor, then having the extra security is so helpful. Choice number 8, we have Fleet of Foot. Increase your combat movement by 5%. Infantry troops in a formation you are leading have their movement increased by 4%. Now that increase of 5% on your person is massive. Being able to move quickly on that battlefield, very useful. Underneath that, we have Steel Core Shields. Your shields take 10% less damage. Infantry troops in a formation you are leading take 10% less damage on their shields. But ultimately, the one above that, Fleet of Foot, is the one that I would pick. After that, we have a choice with Deadly Purpose. Increase damage with one-handed weapons by 5%. Infantry troops in the formation you are leading have their melee damage increased by 10%. Underneath that, we have Unwavering Defense. You gain 5 hit points. Infantry troops in the party you are leading have their hit points increased by 10. This is the one I would pick. Unwavering Defense absolutely is one I would pick. Like I said earlier, if you want a tank, you need to pick up those hit points. And the last pick we have is Clink in the Armor. Your one-handed melee attacks ignore 10% of the enemy's armor, reduces recruitment cost of infantry troops by 20%. And underneath that, we have Prestige. You deal 50% more damage with a one-handed weapon against shields. Increase your party size by 15. Privilege is the one I would pick here because it increases your party size. It also means you can actually get rid of enemy troops' shields quicker. You can even get weapons that actually specifically target shields and can do greater damage against shields as well. So like I said, Privilege is the one I would pick because I just think that's the most all-round one. Plus anything that increases your party size, I am all up for. And lastly, if we invest 5 skill points and 8 attribute points, we should get up to Way of the Sword. Each skill point above 250 grants you 0.2 attack speed increase with one-handed weapons. After that, you've also got each skill point above 250 grants you 0.5 damage increase with a one-handed weapon. This is massive if you manage to get away with a sword, and I very much doubt you're going to get taken down anytime soon on that battlefield. Lastly, I would mention the way to actually earn experience with one-handed weapons. Believe it or not, is actually simply to use a one-handed weapon. That is with shield or with not with shield. Obviously, any kills that you get actually with a shield doesn't count towards this XP, however, so keep that in mind, but it will most likely count towards your athletics. Basically, having a good ability with a one-handed weapon, be it sword and shield, sword and axe, or sword and axe, shield and axe, or shield and mace, means that you kind of have the best of both worlds. Eventually, you're able to deal ridiculous amounts of damage. You are able to one-hit enemies eventually as well, depending on, of course, the quality of your weaponry. What it also means is that you have that protection. You have that shield if you need it to stop incoming blows. Especially in tournaments, having a high one-handed skill level means you're going to be able to win those one-on-ones, and you're going to be able to win those tournaments more easily than not. I also find that one-handed weapons, when attacking castles or even defending your castle in those sieges, is so useful in small, tight-knit spaces. Sometimes you don't have the ability to wield a massive two-handed weapon. You don't have the ability sometimes to wield your pole arm, but you do have the ability to wield a mace, an axe, a sword. You know, in those tight, small spaces, you're able to do that. You're able to get those kills. And if you get stuck, as you just saw on the screen, when you get stuck and completely surrounded, you've still got your shield there for a bit of protection and to help you out and live a little bit longer. Sometimes just enough to slow the enemies down, you know, to get a better advantage on the battlefield. Being great with the sword and shield can be a really fun way to play the game. You are limited slightly though when on horseback. You know, when you're fighting from your horse and you only have a short sword, sometimes it can be really difficult to actually get those kills that you want, especially if you only have a weapon, for instance, as a polearm, or you're not very good with a bow. Up next, we have the two-handed weapons. We're going to talk about the two-handed weapons, all the perks and the lovely treats with that too. Now, two-handed weapons was actually my favorite for an extremely long time. Love two-handed weapons personally. It was the one that I always went for, and the reason I went for it is because you're a bit of a glass cannon sometimes. You do deal unbelievable damage with a two-handed weapon, so that is an immediate advantage. Anyway, let's talk about these perks. First off, we have strong grip. Two-handed weapons you wield have 10% better handling. Infantry troops in a formation you are leading have their two-handed skill increased by 30. That's a big increase, guys. After that, you've got Wood Chopper. Increase your damage with two-handed weapons by 30% against shields. Infantry troops in a formation you are leading have their damage increased by 15% on shields. Personally, I always go for Strong Grip. I just think it has the better stats, and that's the one I like. Choice number 2, we have got Head Basher. Increase your damage by 10% with two-handed weapon, two-handed axe, and two-handed maces. Infantry weapons, infantry troops in a formation you are leading have their damage increased by 2%. Underneath that, we have On the Edge. Increase your swing speed with a two-handed sword by 3%. Infantry troops in the formation you are leading have their swing speed increased by 2% as well. Now, this really does depend on what you're actually going to pick, if you're going to pick swords or if you're going to pick axes, for instance. And depending on your answer, it depends on which one you pick here. Choice number 3, we have Baptism or Baptized in Blood. Infantry in your party gain 5 XP for each enemy you kill with a two-handed weapon. All melee infantry troops in your party gain 5% experience in battles. Underneath that, we have Show of Strength, two-handed weapons that can knock out, ignore 15% of down resistance. Infantry troops gain are 20% cheaper to recruit. Again, this really does depend whether you've got a mace, because the mace would be the Show of Strength. So here, typically, I'd probably choose Baptism in Blood. That way you get to add extra experience to the troops, just simply for playing the game, just simply for killing on the battlefield. Choice number 4, we have Beast Slayer. Increases your damage with two-handed weapons by 50% against mounts. Infantry troops in the formation you are leading have their damage increased by 10% against mounts. That 50% damage you're doing against mounts is absolutely massive, guys. Shield Breaker is underneath that, 40% more damage to shields with a two-handed weapon. Infantry troops in your formation you are leading gain 10% against shields. Again, I'm going to go for Beast Slayer. I just think that 50% against mounts means you can get that cavalry off the field very, very fast. I like that. Choice number 5, we have Berserker. Increase your damage with two-handed weapons by 20% when you have less than half your hit points. Garrison wages are reduced by 10% in governed towns. Confidence. Increase your damage with a two-handed weapon by 15% when you have 90% of your health. Military projects build 30% quicker. Now, I very rarely have 90% of my health, so I'm going to go with Berserker because having less than half of my hit points is probably going to be where I'm at. However, on a governor, confidence is pretty good if you manage to actually get that. After that, we don't have a choice. We get arrow deflection. You can deflect arrows with your two-handed sword now just simply by blocking. The garrison in the governed city gains 10% more experience from battle. So in other words, from defending. I quite like that one. Next up, we have another two options. This time we have Hope. Your kills with two-handed weapons have 30% higher effect on friendly troops' battle morale. In other words, it increases their morale. Your party limit is increased by 5. I like anything that increases my party. I'll take even an increase in 1, but 5 will definitely do. Terror. Your kills with two-handed weapons have 20% higher effect on enemies' morale, meaning that the more you kill, the more they're scared and are more likely to run away. Also increases your prisoner limit by 10. Here, I'm going to pick Hope because, like I said, I like the fact that my party limit is increasing and I'll take anything that does that. Next up, we have Reckless Charge. Increases speed damage and bonus with a two-handed weapon by 20% while on foot. Infantry troops in a formation you are leading increased their damage by 2% and movement speed again has increased by 2%. Underneath that, we have Thick Hide. You gain 5 hit points. Troops in your party have their hit points increased by 5 as well. Thick Hide really is the one I would pick here. As much as I think Reckless Charge sounds good, Thick Hide is the one to go. You get more hit points, your troops get more hit points. It just makes more sense. After that, we have the last pick in this skill tree. The first choice is Blade Master. Blade Master increases your two-handed weapon damage by 10%. Infantry troops in your formation you are leading have their attack speed increased by 2. Underneath that, we have Vandal. Your attacks ignore 25% of your enemy's armor. Infantry troops in a formation you are leading have their damage increased by 20%. It really is up to you here. Personally, I prefer Blade Master. I think the extra increase in your damage is better because it kind of goes with what you're doing. You are the ultimate glass cannon. I mean, as much as you are going to have as much shields as possible and as best armor as possible, you are a glass cannon. Absolute devastating power comes out of your weapons. After that, you manage to get Way of the Great Axe. Each point above 250 grants you 0.2 speed. Each skill point above 250 grants you 0.5 damage with two-handed weapons. Once again, the way to use this or to get experience on a two-handed weapons is simply by using those two-handed weapons. If you plan on getting that max perk, you are going to need 5 focal points. You are going to need 8 attribute points into Vigor. Two-handed weapons deal ridiculous amounts of damage. There are some seriously awesome weapons. You can get two-handed maces, you can get two-handed axes, and of course you can get two-handed swords as well. Some of those swords are blinding. Some of them have piercing, thrusting damage as well as swing damage. One of the best things I like about them is the fact that you can use them on horseback. You don't have to use a pole arm, especially if you're no good with pole arms. You can literally just use your two-handed sword while on the horse. And I think that's absolutely brilliant. It has that versatility. I would still always have a shield, even if I didn't have a sword sometimes. Sometimes you need that shield for going up, you know, a ladder, for instance, or if you're trying to hold some ground, those kind of things. You're going to need a shield. But the two-handed sword, even in sieges, can absolutely mow people down. Its flaw, its biggest flaw, is the fact that you have no shield. You know, typically speaking, if you're running a two-handed sword, you're not going to be running a shield. I do personally, but that's its weak spot, is that you don't have that shield, you don't have that protection when you need it. So you are going to need to invest in that high-quality armor. At every point is going to count, because you're not going to be taking those hits with that shield that you would normally have. Now, personally speaking, I prefer the two-handed weapons. I always have in almost every single playthrough I have done, because I just think that it deals ridiculous amounts of damage. However, I've actually played, say, 50 to 70 hours now with one-handed weapons, specializing down in that, and I've really enjoyed that playthrough, and I found my games a lot more balanced, and I'm not absolutely losing chunks of health because I am on that that sword and shield, meaning I actually have some protection there. I don't really think any one is better than the other. I do think they are both balanced and better in and at different times in the game. But that's pretty much all of my thoughts on these two, on sword versus sword. Let me know down in the comments what your favorite is, whether it's one-handed weapons, whether it's two-handed weapons. Let me know why you pick that. Personally, two-handed weapons are fabulous for dealing ridiculous amounts of damage, and of course for smithing. One-handed weapons are brilliant just for an all-round champion. Again, I love doing the one-handed weapons at the beginning of the game because of that whole point of you being stronger within the tournaments. I also like that there is a perk within the one-handed weapons. It means you actually get double renown from those tournaments. It means you get 6 renown instead of 3 renown. That's a nice little touch too. But in my opinion, there really is no answer to which one is better. It's just personal preference. But if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, guys. Don't forget we do have that Discord for you to join in and ask me any question, or just request a video that you want to see on the channel. But until next time, I've been a Monk, we've been a Critically Clueless, and I will see you in the next video real soon. Until then, take it easy and happy gaming.